Full disclosure, my wife didn't exactly say no. What she said was, if you think it's that important, go ahead and buy it. Well, if you've been married as long as I have, you know that means no. Well, I did it anyway. Now, in her defense, she figured it would go the way of many of my other hobbies, like my electric guitar, like my ukulele, like my fly tying equipment, all the stuff that's gathering dust now. Well, this time it didn't happen. And it didn't happen because I came across a relatively easy way to make some money with it. And I'm going to show you how. Stick with me. The journey begins on a golf course. I'm playing around at golf and I noticed this one-way sign was just looking horrible. I thought, my goodness, that needs replaced badly. And I thought, I could make one of them and I could probably make it better. I noticed as I drove around homeowner signs that were worn out and looking just as rough. And I'm thinking, this could be a business opportunity. So I went and looked for the general manager's office and asked if I could speak to him. I told him, I have a CNC machine. I can make you some signs. I can make them better than the ones you have, and they'll look nicer. He said, I'm interested. Give me a proposal. He also told me that the guy they had making signs doesn't do it anymore, so they were looking for someone. I thought this is going to be a great opportunity, and it sure was. Okay, here's what the finished product's going to look like. We're going to use VCarve desktop in order to produce the file that the CNC machine needs to actually cut the lettering and the arrow and the frame around it. I'm going to walk you through step by step in VCarve Pro, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you want to do on the signs I'm making, I put a border around it. So we know the thing is 21 1/4 by 11 1/4. So we'll make the inside 19 1/2 by 9 1/2. That'll give you enough room to put a chamfer along the edges. Then we want to make another box that's a 1/2 inch bigger. So we'll make the width 20 inches and make the height 10 inches. Create. That'll give you a 1/2 inch kind of tube around, or a border that you can paint. Now you want to build yourself, this is going to be a one-way sign, so I want to build myself a one-way arrow. So you pick the rectangle box. We know our thing is 21 1/4, so let's say we make the arrow 18 inches wide by, let's say, 4 inches. Create it. That's too long and too fat. So let's make it 16 inches by 3 inches. Let's take this other one, select it, hit delete, and get rid of it. This is still a little bit too long, but that's easy to fix. You just select set selected object size, select it, and then you can take this and just drag it over for however long you feel the arrow should be. Close it, and then move it right here, move selected object, slide it up, and right about there is where it should probably be. Now you got to build the arrow. So come up here to draw polygon. Number of sides, we're going to do 3. And then we can create it and decide what size it needs to be. Let me move it now. Again, go to here, move selected object, select it. Let's move it over here and then come up to the corner to rotate it. Come on, quit moving on me. And rotate it. And a little bit more. Now you want to make it a little bigger. I'd say even a little bit bigger. And it's not perfectly straight. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now you got your arrow, but you got this part that's kind of obviously needs to be taken care of. So close, go to the pair of scissors. It's the trim vector. Click on that, take the scissors here, put it right over it, and click it. Go up here to center, and there's your arrow centered. Now, it's not perfectly centered, so select it. Go to this Align Selected Objects, and the Align to Material, it'll either do left, right, all the way centered. If I pick that, it'll center it perfectly in the center. I don't want to do that, so go up to Edit, Undo. You want it between left and right sides. So that'll move it a little bit. So now that's perfectly centered between the left and the right. Close that. Now you want to type one way. Go up to Draw Text, select it. It's going to put it right in the middle, but don't worry about it. Hit your cap lock one way. Type it in. That's going to make it 3.5 inches text height. Let's change it to 3. That's still a little bit too big. Let's change it to 2.75. That looks about right. Close that. Move selected object. And move it down. And kind of center it in between the lower, between the bottom of that arrow and probably the bottom of this. And you still may be a little off. It looks like it's a little closer on this side, but no need guessing. Select this again, so Align Selected Objects. Go left, right, and boom, it's perfect. All right, so there's our sign. You could probably go make these a little bolder. Let's see if they have a bold. Yes, they do. Let's try bold. Yeah, I like it bold. So let's go with bold. It's usually an option, bold or italic, which I don't want to do. But let's go with bold. Close. All right, so there it is. Now you need to set up your toolpaths. So come up here to the right, select toolpath, and if you hit this little pin, it'll lock it so that it doesn't close on you every time you do something. So now you have to select each of the items. So what I do is select one and then hold your shift key, click on the upper one. That gives you both. Then come over here to Group Selected Objects. That locks those two lines together so they're all one. You go back up to Toolpaths. You want to do Pocket Toolpath. Now what it's going to do the pocket on is what's selected. So click that. I want to use a 1/4 inch down cut. Don't use an upcut, as you'll see in the video, because I did do an upcut and it screwed it up. but choose a down cut 1/4 inch spiral. I've already had that selected. My cut depth is 0.2188, which is 7/32 of an inch. Now normally I would do 1/4 of an inch, but it looked a little bit too deep. So this is a little less than 1/4 of an inch. You want to name what you're cutting, because you're cutting this area in here. I'm naming it the frame. And then I put the tool number so that I know which tool, which bit to use. That's 46202. And then I tell myself which one it is. It's a 1/4 inch. And you calculate. Now that flips you right to the 3D view. If you want to make sure you did it right, go to Preview All Toolpaths, and there it is cut out. It looks good. But there's one more thing. Right-click it, go to Edit. Number of passes is 1, which means it's just going to go right down, cut 1 pass. I want to change it to more than 1 pass. So let's change it, number of passes 2. That way it'll cut like 1/8 of an inch, then 1/8 of an inch. It's a little cleaner and it doesn't put so much stress on your bit. So say OK, and then calculate again, because you got to recalculate. And then preview it again. It looks good. So that's good for the frame. Go back up to 2D view. Now let's do the arrow. So select your arrow. Close out of this. You want to do another pocket toolpath. You leave the depth the same, 2.188. You might as well try the 1/4 inch, see if that'll work. But I know from doing these before, the 1/4 inch leaves the edges a little too rounded. So I want to make them a little sharper. So you also want to select another down cut, and I'm going to select an 1/8 inch down cut. Select that. Now I've got 2. So one of them is going to cut the edge. The 1/8 inch will cut the edge, and then the 1/4 inch will come in and cut out the balance. So I want to name this. I want to name it Arrow. It's 46202, which is the 1/4 inch. But it's also an 1/8 inch, but you're going to see when I calculate it, it's going to put 2 different paths. All right, so you notice this one, when you look at the edit, it shows you that it's a 1/8 inch, but you got 1/4 inch, and you got 46202, which is the 1/8 inch. So you want to change that. So edit it. You know you're still on the arrow, but you're using the 1/8 inch, which is 46200, and change it to 1/8 and calculate. And then preview. And there it gives you, they're kind of sharp. I mean, I could go to a 1/16 and make it perfect, but it's a one-way sign. I mean, it's no big deal. So close that, go back up to 2D, and select your letters. Now, go back up again to Pocket Toolpath. Now this one, you want to use the 1/8 and the 1/4 again. So just go ahead, name it Letters. 46202, 1/4, which will be one of them. Calculate. Look at it, hold your scroll, or you hold the arrow right on it, and it'll show you this one's the 1/8, which is 46200. Right click it, edit, 46200, change it to 1/8, calculate, preview all toolpaths. Now if you hit this center arrow, that looks pretty good. So you can grab a hold of it and right click it, or not right click, roll your arrow or roll the scroll and hold on to it, and you can 3D it. You can move it sideways so you can see what it'll look like. That's it. So you close that, go to File, Save Toolpath. Now you don't see anything in there, but you click Toolpaths and it'll allow you to. Click on, make sure your post processor is the right one for your CNC machine. I have a Shapeoko. I had inches in here and I was having errors and problems. I switched it to the millimeter, which doesn't make any difference, but I have not had a problem since I switched it. So make sure you have your post processor set to Shapeoko MM. Save your toolpath. It'll ask you where you want to save it. I usually save it onto a flash drive that is attached, and it'll show up over here, and just click Save. Name it, one-way sign. And that's it. I bought my lumber at Lowe's because it was undercover and the local lumber yard it was usually wetter. This was at 12.6% on the moisture meter, which is the lowest I've found. Usually it's as high as 20 or 30. I let it sit in my basement for about a month and got it down to 11. Listen, if you guys like what you're seeing here, please hit the subscribe button so that I can continue making videos like this. Anyway, I went on out to my driveway, measured off the actually 24 inches. I wanted to cut it at 22, but I wanted to leave myself room for trimming it on my chop saw because it makes a nicer cut and much more accurate than what I can do with the circular saw here. I thought I'd be smart here. Instead of letting the piece of wood drop to the ground, I'd hold on to it with my other hand, and of course it fell to the ground. Here I'm using a handheld router to put a chamfer on the edges. I found it makes it look a little more professional and more like a sign. Sanding it here again with a Bosch sander hooked up to my vacuum so that I don't get dust all over the place. This is a great roller. They're cheap, and I use them mostly for all the paint work that I do because it gives a nice smooth finish and makes it easy for the mask to stick to it. I put one coat of black, roll it, and then I sand it, and then I spray a coat of semi-gloss or gloss black, depending on the look that I want. The gloss allows the Oramask to stick to the wood. Here I am applying it. It comes in rolls. I squeegee it on and then trim it off with a pair of scissors, and then I go around with a ruler and a razor knife and trim all the edges where I want the green paint that it's going to be on later, where I want the paint to stop. And it's going to be basically right on the upper edge of the chamfer. Make sure you get all the bubbles out and then take it over to your CNC. These are Meyer's clamps that I got from his website and use it to clamp down. This is about all I've used on this machine for over a year. Here I'm putting the bit in. I believe I started out with an 1/8 inch bit on this and then go to a 1/4. Make sure you hold on to the bit as you're changing bits. I had one drop just that little distance and it broke the carbon, or broke the bit. That was expensive. Here I'm using the paper method. I've got a little piece of paper I'm holding under there, and I'm very slowly lowering the bit till it just touches the surface. Do not push it into the surface. I've done that a number of times, and it moves your whole router, or it moves the screws up your machine, and you end up having to reset everything. So be very careful. Again, I push my finger against it as I loosen it up. It's already cut the 1/8 inch, and here it's cutting the 1/4 inch, which is removing stuff. And if you notice, I've got a little bit of a problem here. Normally you don't see pieces of the masking coming up like that. And yes, it's dangerous reaching in there because you could really hurt yourself. But in retrospect, I should have stopped and switched bits. And I'm going to show you what I did wrong. This is an UpCut bit, 1/4 inch UpCut, and it's cutting up, so it's pulling the masking right off. And here it is wrapped all around the bit, which I ended up having to clean up later, and it also jammed up my dust collection. So just another part of the learning curve. So once I got it out of the machine, I had to fix all the UpCut that had pulled up my masking. So here I am trimming the masking. It wasn't that bad, but once I switched to a downcut bit, you can see the rest of them were cut, very nice. Here I'm putting a coat of white paint. I've been using the Rust-Oleum high gloss white for my signs. I tried spray painting it, and it didn't seem to give it the same kind of coverage the hand painting with the white brush does. And I don't know, I may not be true. Tell me if you think it is. I think this will give me a longer life. I put 2 coats. This is the second coat of white. So I made sure I got everything, and I want these signs to last. Here I am painting the green on the back and the tops and the sides. These are the colors that this country club uses for all their signage. So I got a can of paint from the local hardware store that matches it. And again, I'm using the roller, and I just throw these rollers away. I tried saving them, and I mean, if I'm going to try to do it the same day, I'll put them in a baggie. But here I'm peeling off the masking, and this is the fun part because it really starts looking nice. Last thing you do on this is go around and touch up all the little spots that, where the paint kind of seeped under the masking. And you end up doing a little bit of black, a little bit of gold, and a little bit of white. Here I'm spraying the Helmsman spar varnish. This is the second coat, so it's just a light touch-up on top of everything. And that's it. Here's all 4 finished. And I sold these for $300, so I got $75 a piece. Depending on how much you pay for wood, you can figure out how much you would make on this project. Listen, if you stuck this long with me, I sincerely appreciate it. Please take a moment and hit the subscribe button. I never realized watching all the videos I watch how much it actually helps, but it really does. So thanks again.